Special request video. Somebody asked for, how do you change this restricted brake hose on a 2002 Buick LeSabre? Now, you see this hold down bracket right here? This is probably our culprit. It rust swells and it creates a restricted brake hose situation. So fluid pressure can get in but struggles to get out, which makes it seem like a locked up caliper, and then it wears your brake pads out 50% faster, let's say, for example. So let's replace this brake hose and show you how to do it. Late night here at Carl's garage, and I stopped. I was like, you know what, we'll film it. So right here you have a banjo bolt connected to your caliper, and I believe this was an 11 millimeter. Now you'll notice there's no brake fluid dripping out of this brake hose. Brake hose is still connected right here to the brake line. We have a valve stem. You can buy these at your parts store for like $1 a piece or something. They usually come in 4 packs and you got to spend like, I don't know, $4 to $6 on them. You don't need that, but I just love using them. I'm a tire shop too, so I've got tons of them laying around. So banjo bolt out, bam, your hose is off. Now this one, not all brake hoses have a hold down bolt. Well, there was I believe that was a 10 millimeter as well right there on the strut. Yep, here's my 11 for the banjo. Yep, 11 on the banjo, 10 on the strut, and the hold down bracket is off. Now, it can still be a restricted hose. A lot of heat is produced in the brakes. It can break down the rubber in the hose, become restricted internally. Oh, look, we got a crack right there in the rubber. Look at that, I didn't even notice that till now. And it breaks down the rubber and it can still work like a funnel. I like to think of it as one of those like fish traps that you see on the internet, like in other countries where the fish can swim in, but they can't swim out. And it forces, when you press your brake pedal, it forces the hydraulic pressure into the caliper. If it's restricted in here, then it can't really come out right away. And it depends on the severity of the hose. It could just be wearing slightly faster. I have seen them get cherry red. Back in my rookie days, like, I don't know, 19, 20, I don't know how old I was. But I changed the caliper and pads and rotors, thinking it was that, and then go for a drive, and even on a short drive, the rotor, the whole thing turned cherry red. I was like, whoa, stop, let it cool down, and brought it back to the parking lot with touching the brakes as little as possible. And I was like, all right, something else is going on here. It has to be the brake hose. So I wasted all that money on a caliper. Yeah, it needed new pads and rotors. The caliper was fine. Well, because the rotor was getting cherry red, it was probably a good thing that the caliper got replaced anyways. But that's the severity that a hose can cause. Like literally glowing red rotor, 100% coverage, crazy. That was the worst case scenario I've ever seen in my life. Most of the time, it's just gonna make your brake pads wear, like I said, about 50% faster than the other side. So with the hold down bracket gone and the brake hose off of the banjo bolt, boom, nothing else disassembled besides the lug nuts off, 19 millimeter on those. We have, you don't need them, but it helps, brake line wrenches. They're line wrenches. This 5/8 fit on it really good on the top. You don't always need to put a wrench on the top because sometimes it's locked in by this bracket, but sometimes when they're this rusty, it's good to have a little extra support. And then what we want to do is crack the line free, and it was sprayed down with penetrant, and these are known to take the line with it. So make sure your line's not spinning and only your fitting. You may have to work it back and forth and put some light heat on it. I'm talking like small butane torch usually does the trick. Nothing too heavy like oxyacetylene. Now our line is off of there and we don't want to lose too much fluid. I always save these little caps from different things all over. Put it right over there. It's just a little cap. They come on parts that you get delivered to your shop. And boom, now we're not losing fluid and we can worry about getting this hose off right here. This hose is attached, and I apologize for being so professional today, guys. I like to goof around, and you know, it agitates the comments when I say something wrong here and there, which boosts me in the algorithm. So, you know, I like to say stuff wrong every once in a while, throw some crazy jokes in, and I apologize for being so serious on this video, but it was a special request. We could see that our brake line is completely rotted into this bracket. So I got that far before I started filming. I was like, all right, fine, I'll film it for him. So we're gonna take our snap-on screwdriver. It's one of the few snap-on tools I have because they're overpriced, and smack it. See that? It just needs a little vibration to smack free from that rust. Now our new hose may not fit in there with all the rust. You can see there is a flat spot. There's a round spot and then almost like a hex on the other 4 points. So it only fits in one way, you see that? So let's go ahead and grab our wire brush and give it just a little wiring so the new hose goes in good. Sometimes I use the Dremel. Today, I'm going with the wire brush. I switch things up around here. So grab your Harbor Freight wire brush. I like this style, red handle. You can go with Matco, Snap-on, all your top brand name tools for the tools that really count, like torque wrenches. If you're a professional, you don't need to spend that much money if you DIY on a torque wrench. But all your everyday stuff, black sockets at Harbor Freight, awesome. Some of their stuff is junk. I tried their exhaust pipe expanders one time. I think it worked like 2 or 3 times before it shattered. Oh, all kinds of stuff I can talk about. But anyways, save the big money, the big dollars for the important stuff. Little stuff like this, Harbor Freight, Amazon. That looks pretty good to me. Let's grab our new hose. All right, now we're gonna fit our new hose in. Right, boom, it just locked in, I guess the second time. If you have a locked up brake line fitting, you can actually take that clip out and bring it up so that, and then the line has a little bit of play to it, and then you can spin the line off of it if you don't want to change your brake line and it's seized onto the brake line. That's one way to do it. Then when you bring it, go to put your new one on, you put your hose up here and spin it on tight. And that's just a little trick, you know. Maybe if I run into it another day and I feel like filming, I'll film that trick. All right, but this one is moving freely, luckily, which is, oh my, it looks like original brake lines, but it's a 22-year-old vehicle in Michigan. There's no way these are original, right? Unless they were like replaced with dealer lines 10 years ago. They look beautiful. I'm actually kind of suspicious this car came from down south. It looks too clean to be a Buick in Michigan. Looks too clean. All right, let's see what we can do. See if we can guess where it goes again. Boom, I'm so good at that. Oh my God. We're gonna grab our clip that was originally in there that we popped out with that screwdriver, and we want to pop it in there. And I got it started, and I'll just need a little persuasion, boom, to lock in. Our hose is now locked in. Brake lines, very easy to start cross-threading. I usually like to start them before I put the clip in, but you know, I'm filming and I'm distracted. You do not, power steering lines and brake lines, those are the two things that will love to cross-thread on you, and it's easy to do. So you always want to be careful with them. This brake line fitting is so clean, I'm not worried about it. So clean. So we do not need a wrench on the top unless we were worried about how rusty everything was. I believe that was a 14 on the bottom side. We're inverted, so we gotta go lefty-tighty, which would be this way. We're upside down. And I usually like to use an open-ended wrench. I don't know why I'm using a line wrench to start this. Jaeger tool wrenches, find them in my Amazon store. These are my new favorite ratcheting wrenches as far as affordability goes. I did a giveaway on these out of my own pocket, never collaborated with Jaeger tools. I just liked them so much. I was like, I'm gonna give away a set to somebody. That was like 2 years ago. I have abused every one of these and none of the ratcheters have broke. Where a gear wrench, great for the price, great for the DIYer, but not for the professional who's using them every day, they will break eventually. Oh yeah, that's nice and tight. All right, we don't need to be tearing any threads out. Just lost my train of thought, guys. I had to cut for a phone call. You know what happens. Anyways, now that we're nice and tight on our hose to our line, we want to clean any residual brake fluid off with some brake cleaner, because we want to check every fitting when we get the brakes bled to make sure there's not a small seepage over time that could drain your reservoir. It's part of the final test drive and inspection on, you know, brake hoses, brake lines, and whatnot. So give it a little spray off and then spray it off with some compressed air or a rag. I like compressed air or my mini duster tool. I've got many in my shop. I keep on finding more and more uses for that the more I use it. But I got a rag in my hand, so that's what we're using this time. And by the time I get done with everything, that brake cleaner will be dry. And if there's any wetness at all anywhere near here, then I know I got small seepage, even though I'm 100% confident in this. It's just better. Always be safe. Always have a standard practice for things. If you know you're doing it professionally, liability. All right, we're gonna take this bracket and we are gonna bend it, not bend it, but flex it to where it lines up with this hole in the strut. It's kind of awkward, and I feel like GM really, Buick, GM, whatever you want to say, could have added another inch onto these hoses, because when you're turned all the way right, it does stretch the hose more than I like to see. We could open up this bracket and pull the hose down a little bit, but just take a screwdriver, open it up a little bit, and then close it back up. We'll see. We're fully right-hand turn right now, so we'll see how stretched it is compared to the original hose that was on it. All right, 10 millimeter bracket. You know what? Maybe that wasn't a 10. Maybe that was an 11 this whole time, and I lied to you guys. I apologize. I like to think of myself as an honest person. The 11 doesn't fit either. What is a 3/8 doing over here? Jiminy. Jason Mraz. All right, I'm not sure how that happened. I think it was just the garage gremlins moving stuff around on me. That's why your 10 mils go missing all the time. They don't walk away. There's something called garage gremlins. Like, you ever set down a tool and then, like, you turn around for 5 seconds and it's gone? No. It just happens to be that their favorite socket is a 10 mil. Something called garage gremlins. When I first got started, an old redneck mechanic taught me about those garage gremlins. Yeah, I don't like how tight this little sucker, look how tight it has to be. So, I got the key in the ignition so that the steering doesn't lock. Check it out, the fancy Goose Grip lighting. Go to goosegrip.com. Not sponsored, just I think the owner's a cool cat, and it's my absolute all-time favorite lighting of all time. My second favorite is now the stand that I'm using. I love it. All right, now we need our new crush washers. Never forget the crush washers. Sometimes these stick on there. Use vice grips to pop them off or a screwdriver. This one I was able to get off with my nails, not too bad. Now the brake hose was supplied with new crush washers, but not a new banjo bolt. We'll reuse the banjo bolt. All right, turn it a little more just to make it, you hear those struts crunching? Ugh. I do believe the guy told me he just picked this up from somewhere or another and doesn't know much about it. I think it came from down south, and the struts only have surface rust on them. They look good, tension looks good, spring look good, but they're creaking on the top. On the top of these struts is a strut mate bearing, and sounds like that bearing's worn out. I think if this was in Michigan, I think those struts are much older than they look, and that bearing is worn out. It is hard to turn the steering wheel, and you can hear the bearings on both sides creaking. So I will recommend new struts to them if he wants to put the money into it. This is another one of those things you do not want to cross thread. I just started it, not really looking too much, and I don't like the way it felt, but I'm not sure if it's because the hose is stretched so far, and I do not like how stretched it is turning all the way right, just like the original hose. So I'm gonna modify it and make it better than the engineers did. Let me show you. We're just gonna take this bracket, try to open it up a little. It's working. We're gonna He-Man it. All right, don't poke that hose. Now let's see if we can take a little, let's see if we can put a little, oh, we gotta open it some more. Don't puncture or hurt your hose. All right, we got a, yep, and now that bolt's going in by hand some more. So we gave it a little more tension, and by opening it up, it'll take longer here in the rust belt for it to rust swell it up, but it's still not going anywhere. That's how it should have been designed, but cars are built to fail so that the economy can keep on sucking money out of the 99%. Shh, I didn't say that. All right, now we're going to tighten this banjo bolt. We want it nice and tight, but not enough that we strip out the threads inside the caliper. I've seen people do that. These are crush washers. You have to have them tight to seal. But you put too much on them, and they're gonna strip out, and you're gonna be buying a new caliper, tapping new threads. We're gonna tap the back of this banjo bolt. A little something I learned from my mobile mechanic, 400-some thousand followers. And that will actually let you tighten it just that little bit more. Kind of takes out the little slack in the crush washers. I like it. Cool little trick. We are all installed on our brake hose. Now, all we have to do is bleed and check for brake leaks. Only place we've got to check is here, right here where we disconnected, right here where we disconnected. So we spray it with brake cleaner. We're gonna open up our brake bleeder right here, bleed the brakes, get all the air out. Lots of videos on that if you're curious. So lots of videos on bleeding brakes. Once you got all the air out, the brakes feel nice and tight. I like to put a little bar on the rotors and see if they still spin or not, you know, while somebody presses the brake pedal down, or you can put a piece of 2x4 on the pedal like somebody's pressing the brakes. Lots of ways to bleed. You can get a vacuum bleeder, pressure bleeder, old school style, wood on the brake pedal, whatever you want to do. Anyways, that's how you change the brake hose. Bleed your brakes, pump your brake pedal, prime it so the piston comes out and touches the pad and the pads touch the rotor. You don't want to take off with a compressed caliper. You'll have no brakes. But there's this special request, how to install brake hose 2002 Buick LeSabre. Hope you guys enjoyed. Catch you later.